In today's video, I'm going to go over two methods of freehand drawing. One is using lots of different shapes, and the other is what I like to call point expansion. So let's get to it. So beginning with the shape method, we're going to split this paintbrush into its basic components of squares, rectangles, and other quadrilateral shapes. This then really simplifies the outline, making it a much more approachable task to transfer it from the reference image to the piece of paper. We can then go and look back at the original photo and add in all those details that we missed in those blocks. So for instance, the markings on the handle, the bristles, embellishments on the metal as well. And then because we've got these shapes that kind of give us a reference point of where these need to go, it becomes quite accurate opposed to just drawing it free-handedly, even though it is a freehand method. That was a really dumb thing to say. So when you're happy with all these details, you can go in with the shading. I'm not going to go into any detail about shading in this video because I've done a video especially on the topic, which should appear on the screen, and I'll link it in the description. Now, moving on to point expansion. This is where we're going to move away from those more simple shapes and focus on the more complex forms. So we're going to do this by viewing our object and seeing what part most brings to us, and we're going to start at that point and use that as a reference for the size and proportions that will follow when we expand to the rest of the drawing, hence the term point expansion. It's worth noting that this drawing style is actually really hard to do. For instance, the drawing you're seeing now wasn't exactly my first attempt. So from someone who doesn't do a lot of freehand drawing, I was really happy with how this turned out. Now the reason it's so hard to do is because you're focusing on this whole general picture, which is really complex and just made up of so many different things that it's quite hard to fathom just where to start and how everything links together. This is why I really like using the grid method, which I've also done a video on, linked on the screen and in the description. And then using this grid method, it just splits it into more digestible and approachable chunks. These chunks then focus our attention, not necessarily on the bigger picture, but the smaller jigsaw pieces that we can then put together to form this main image that we're trying to create. However, this isn't a video on the grid method, this is freehand, so let's get straight back to it. So for demonstrational purposes, I had a go at drawing this stapler with the grid method. As you can see, it kind of loses that personal touch and soul that you kind of give it when you do a freehand drawing. So it becomes quite robotic and it's just exactly what's there, so it becomes a bit like, it's not necessarily a drawing. I mean, yes, it is a drawing, but it's not a drawing, if you see what I mean. So that's all for this video. If you found anything in it useful or you've enjoyed it a little bit, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time with more creative content.